But when I was sweeping the floor, it gives me something that I never forget, is that humiliation. And sweeping, that was not one of my plans to do in the United States. I was working probably about 90 hours a week until my kids said, "Daddy, when are you going to have some time to play with us?" I don't know of anyone that worked any harder than my dad. And he's still living. And he still tells me what to do. My wife told me I should play golf. And my wife and my son told me I should play golf. And I try golf. I love golf, but it just takes too long.
This program is brought to you by MenuJoy.com. We show restaurant menus. You browse, you decide. And by Handy Andy's Quality Vacuum Cleaners. We make the best vacuum cleaner you'll ever own.
José S. Castelo. Castelo. C-A-S-T-E-L-O. Some people mispronounce it all the time. C-A-S-T-E-L-O.
What about the S?
Soas. We shorten up because in Portugal we have all these long names and we gotta make a short. So José Soares Castelo. I was raised in a small village in São Miguel, Azores, Portugal, obviously. I graduated with 11 years old, 4th grade. Started working full time. Actually, in Portugal, we started working, as soon as we walk, we start working there. But full time at 11 years old with my dad in the farms, growing vegetables and potatoes and tobacco and grapes and whatever there is to grow. Then in 1968, my dad decided that he wanted to come to the United States. And one of the reasons being that two of my older brothers were in a war in Angola and Mozambique. And my parents said, "Look, 2 is enough. Maybe we want to save you from going to the war." So I was surprised a couple of weeks before we come, the government says, "Look, you cannot go." I cannot go I cannot come with my parents. I was 16, going to 17 almost. Yes, I was 16 at the time. Then I had a brother had come from the war, and the government says you cannot go. So I stayed behind with my older brother who had come from the war. And my dad came with my sisters, with my mama and 4 sisters. Then my parents called us, and we came like 6 months later. So I arrived over here in May 1969 with 17 years old. The following day I arrived, I went to get my paperwork, legal work to work. And the day after, I started working at Calvin Clothing. My sister was already working there. She gave me a job there. Started working as a presser. 2 weeks down the road, the boss came to me and said, "There's no more work. We have no work. The only work we have for you is sweep the floors, janitor, between ladies, And I thought, okay, I'll do that, I have no reason not to. Although I was giving my paycheck to my dad, I never kept a dime. He used to give me $5 at the end of the week. So I worked in maintenance, cleaning the floors, the bathrooms for a few weeks. Then an opening a floor boy came about, and they put me in floor boy. But when I was sweeping the floor, it gives me something that I never forget, is that humiliation. I was really kind of hurt that I was sweeping between young ladies, girls and ladies, and sweeping, that was not one of my plans to do in the United States. I never did in Portugal. I work in a farm, but sweeping, and I made a commitment to myself. I needed to go to school, night school, and learn the language. Went to school, and I was learning a little bit. I was buying the newspapers. People were making fun of me. I was buying the English newspapers. But that's how I learned, believe it or not. And 2 years later, I was asked to be a section supervisor of Calvin Clothing. And that went well for some people. For some people, it didn't go very well because I couldn't speak the language, and some people were there for longer than I have, could speak the language and get the opportunity to be a supervisor. But I worked hard my way through, and then I started a business, a landscaping business, after hours, weekends, and painting job business. I started my brother-in-law was working with me on weekends. Remember, I was 17. Then things were going good at Calvin, and then I decided to go for my real estate license. So 1971, I went for my real estate license. I got it in 1972. Started selling real estate, transferred my business, my landscaping business to my brother, which he still has some of the customers today, believe it or not. So I was doing, Calvin was working good, and I was asked to be promoted to production manager of Calvin Clothing. This was like 6 years later since I came here. I did that job for several years. In the meantime, I was doing real estate for part-time. Then I opened up my real estate company in 1978, still at Calvin Clothing on full-time. I was putting about 45 hours, 50 hours at Calvin Clothing, working part-time in my business. 1980, I went for my insurance license. Got my insurance license in 1980. Soon after that, I opened up an insurance agency here in the same location where we are today. I hired someone with experience because I had no experience on insurance. I was just licensed. Your license doesn't mean that you know anything about insurance or about anything else. So I hired someone with experience, and the business, we started with 0 clients. We started growing. Then my children got married. I was in '74. I got married, and two children came about, my son and my daughter. And I was working probably about 90 hours a week until my kids said, "Daddy, when are you going to have some time to play with us?" So decision had to be made. So I went back, discussed with my wife. I went back and speak with my boss. Said, "I'm going to give my notice." I said, "What's the matter? We like you here. Look, I have to go to. My business is growing. My family needs me. I want to grow my business, and I wanted to. That's what we're going to do." So I waited a long time, probably 3-4 months before a replacement was found for my job. Then I left Calvin in 1984. Then I dedicated myself to my real estate and insurance business. But back then, going back a little bit, I also started the construction company when I was at Calvin, 1980. I started building houses. I bought a lot here and there and started building houses. You may ask me if I knew anything about construction, and the answer to you is no. I did not know nothing about construction. I learned in a way, and I was just a handy person. And then things took off. Then after I left Calvin, I had more time to promote. Then I started developing streets and roads and building houses and did all of that. And we're still doing today on a smaller scale because of the economy the way it is. And I'm still here. But after all these years, I live in Acushnet. I lived in New Bedford until we got married in 1974. After that, we went to Acushnet. That's where we live. And we have 3 grandchildren, which is the love of our lives. My hobbies, working in the yard. I enjoy working in the garden. I enjoy being in the woods. I like soccer. I like to watch good soccer game. I like to watch basketball. I like to watch hockey. I enjoy sports. I have been in the World Cup a couple of times with my son, and the Euro Cup a couple of times with my son. And a few years ago, someone told me, my wife told me I should play golf. And my wife and my son told me I should play golf, and I try golf. I love golf, but it just takes too long. I'm not ready to play golf yet because it takes half a day to play golf. I try to be happy by doing the right thing. And how doing the right thing is to be balanced. As much I work hard all these years and many, many hours, I always devoted time to my family. If I was working, I was working. If I was not working, I was with the family. Everywhere we went, any functions we went, I don't care how small the children were, they used to go with us every single time. So I think it has to be a happy medium. Is to a balance. Has to be a balance. I don't know if you can be happy all the time, but if you do a balance and if you think of the other person instead of thinking about you all the time. For a while, when I started my business, I was thinking just about me because I want to build a good home for my family. I want to build a base. I want to take my kids to college. I want to work really hard. And I often told my wife that if I live to 45, I'd be very happy. That way, I want to accomplish when I was 45 years old. I want to make sure you have a home paid for, and I want to make sure you're going to have what you need to go on if something happens to me. Because both of my grandparents, my father's side and my mother's side, they both die young, in the 50s. And for some reason or another, I never thought I will survive. I'll survive them. Although my dad's going to be 98 years old this year. So I work hard. That's the goals that I had. I want to have a good base for my family, and work hard and enjoy what I do. I always enjoy what I do, no matter how many hours I put in, 14, 16, 18 hours, 7 days a week at times. Even at home, the phone never shuts off. You have to enjoy what you're doing. It's very hard to succeed if you don't enjoy what you're doing, and if you don't have a family behind you. My wife didn't care too much for me to work all these hours. She never cared too much for me to buy income property because it's a lot of work, you know. And there's an old saying, there's no pain, there's no gain. So, you know, there has to be a balance. And I think if there's a balance between work and family, and if you pay attention to our family, and sometimes hear this, sometimes they don't say much, but sometimes you can just feel it. You know, that look, maybe you want to come home a little bit early today, you know, or maybe you want to take an afternoon off at some point, you know, and spend with us. And that's the most important thing of my success, is being able to have a balance between work and family.
What do you dislike most about your appearance?
That's funny. Weight, obviously. Overweight, it's always a thing, a problem. One day that I feel happy is the day I don't have to shave. If there's a day in a week, then I at least stay home, or I'm going to go someplace, and I don't shave. That's a good day for me. I don't like the appearance, but it feels good.
Which living person do you most admire?
My dad. My father. He's going to be 98 years this year, and he's been my idol. He was very tough, he still is, but that's what made me who I am today. It's very hard work. I don't know of anyone that worked any harder than my dad. And he's still living, and he still tells me what to do.
If you could change one thing about yourself, what would it be?
Be kind, be a better listener. Often, because I'm so busy, I shut people off as they're speaking, and that's something I'm not proud of. And I like to do that if I could.
What is your greatest fear?
The fear of failure. Fear of failure. I don't like to fail. There's always that fear of failure.
What do you consider your greatest achievement?
The fact that I work as many hours as I do, and I still have a family very close to me. That's my big achievement. And be able to have my son graduate from college, that's also, to me, is a big to-do.
Where would you like to live?
Well, for the next several years, right here. I like to explore other areas, other countries. I like to go back home where I was born. That's always a nice place in my very close to my heart. Other than that, I cannot go too far because the family, my wife, I don't think will ever go too far and leave the kids and the grandkids behind. So right here is just fine. Life has a lot to offer. There's nothing better. People sometimes do stupid things and ruin their lives, and life is so precious. And every day that we get up, I think all of us should be very thankful, because life has so much to offer, so much to explore, so much to learn. It's a learning. Life is a learning experience. It never ends until you die, obviously.
How would you like to die?
Fast. I don't want to be in bed for years suffering. Quick, off a cliff or something.
This program is brought to you by MenuJoy.com. We show restaurant menus. You browse, you decide. And by Handy Andy's Quality Vacuum Cleaners. We make the best vacuum cleaner you'll ever own.